Lesson A3, Social Research. Last time, we saw how the new scientific study of society grew out of the social changes of the Industrial Revolution and the three major theoretical perspectives sociologists use to explain society. At the macro level, looking down at the big picture, we have two opposing views. Functionalists say that society is made up of social structures, everything from handshakes to government, which shape our lives and provide essential functions to keep society stable. Conflict theorists, on the other hand, say that society is made of unequal groups struggling over resources, with the most powerful often using social structures to maintain their position while others try to change things. At the micro level, interactionists say that society is made up of individuals whose rational decisions and understanding together make up the larger social structures. Personally, I take a mixed view that society is a process of structuration, a constant cycle of action and influence, and that as individuals we can change things only by understanding the structures around us. But before we can delve into more specific aspects of society, we need to understand how social scientists come up with their theories. Because a theory without research facts is just philosophy. We all feel like we know something about our social world. Maybe you have your own hypotheses about why people act the way they do, or how some types of people are different than others. But how do we know that our ideas are valid? Do they actually tell us something true? The problem with basing our ideas on everyday experience is that our personal perspectives are limited to a small sample of society. Of about 7 billion humans in the world today, how many have you actually interacted with? How many do you know well? How many people's heads have you been in to see through their eyes? Our own understanding is based on the culture in which we are raised, and we tend to remember that which confirms our belief while ignoring anything that challenges them. Judgments we make about people before we get to know them, also known as prejudice, lead to stereotypes, assumptions about whole groups of people. Are all men muscular and brave, our traditional idea of masculine? Are all women small and timid, living by their maternal instincts, our traditional idea of feminine? Simple observations of the people around us can give evidence against such stereotypes. You or someone you know probably doesn't feel like a traditional man or woman in every way. Yet, observations can also confirm our stereotypes, as we see boys and girls who do seem to fulfill these roles. With such limited experience and such a variety of people, how can we say anything for sure? Our best bet is to use the scientific method, to gather data about the world with reliable methods that others can repeat, and analyze our evidence for what it is, not what we want it to be. To make theories about the way things work based on that evidence and encourage ourselves and others to question research further. Emil Durkheim is considered another key founder of sociology. He said that sociologists have to study social facts that can be observed and recorded in a way that other researchers can verify. So if we wanted to know about common differences between men and women, we might look at the things they buy, how often they get arrested, and other specific behaviors. We cannot study the souls of men and women because those aren't observable. They are abstract. What you see or believe about their divine purpose might be completely different from what I believe, and there is no way that we can prove one another right or wrong. So to gather data with the scientific method, we go through some basic steps. We ask a question about the world, we look at what we already know from previous research, we make an educated guess, our hypothesis, and then we actually go out and do the research, which involves coming up with a method, gathering data, and then analyzing that data to develop a conclusion. Perhaps a new theory, perhaps proving or disproving an older theory. Often these steps circle back on themselves as we discover something that changes our earlier ideas. Durkheim asked a dark and meaningful question in his famous study of suicide. He looked at the data available and saw that people in some countries seemed to take their own lives more often than in others. So he came up with an initial idea, maybe something like it's caused by the depression of poverty. But then he went out and did the research, gathering data from funeral homes and police records, and discovered that certain members of certain groups committed suicide more often than others in every society. He analyzed his findings and found that the highest rates were among soldiers who'd been pulled from their homes, unmarried people who lived alone, atheists and Protestants who lacked a strong Catholic Church community, and he found that it wasn't poor people who needed each other's help killing themselves, but wealthy people who could afford to be self-sufficient. He concluded that the biggest variable causing suicide was social isolation, being alone. This supported his belief in functionalism, that structures such as families, churches, and neighborhoods served crucial functions for society by meeting the needs of individuals. But researching people and figuring out why they do what they do isn't always easy. Natural science studies objects. Two identical balls will always fall at the same rate in the same location in the same conditions. That which you can't see with your own eyes can be recorded with other kinds of instruments. But people don't respond to gravity in the same way. If you shove someone, you can't guarantee what's going to happen. They make decisions based on what's going on inside their heads, and we've yet to find any way to scientifically record inner thoughts. Not only are their processes hidden, but no two people are the same. Every individual is unique. We can make some reliable predictions given enough information, but there are always exceptions. And these unique individuals also make their decisions in interaction with others in a myriad of different ways across the globe. Lastly, what we can observe and record is always in danger of being distorted by bias. Those cultural values, assumptions, prejudices, and limitations that cloud our everyday observations can throw off social research as well. Bias is like wearing sunglasses while trying to determine how bright a candle is. It pushes you toward a conclusion that isn't reliable or valid. Through awareness of our own and others' biased views and careful data gathering, we try for objectivity, seeing the facts as if we were an object, like a camera, just recording what is there regardless of our own beliefs. Weber said we needed to practice value neutrality by putting aside our own values of what's right or wrong, important or not. Since it's difficult to avoid seeing through our own cultural lens, we should balance our view using Verstehen to understand others' actions from their own perspective. By understanding many different points of view, we can put the puzzle pieces together to form a more objective view. We learn about people in many different ways, but a few of the most common big methods generally give different kinds of data, bits of information. Questionnaire surveys and secondary analysis often give us good quantitative data, hard numbers or quantities, that we can compare mathematically. Participant observation and interview surveys tend to give more qualitative data, useful information that can't be reduced to simple numbers, like the tone of someone's voice or the subtle nature of an interaction between parent and child. Regardless of method, you generally can't study every individual. If the population you're interested in is the women of the United States, that's over 150 million people. But you don't have to eat the whole cake to know what it tastes like. You take a smaller sample of the population and base your conclusions of the whole on that. Now, if all you tasted was the frosting, you'd get a very biased idea of what the cake tasted like, so you need to carefully slice off a representative sample that gives an accurate depiction of the whole. To give reliable data, you need a big enough sample size with a diverse random selection, so that when someone else takes a new sample, they'll get similar results. Sampling errors are some of the most common problems that can bias a study. Such errors can lead to overgeneralization or wrongly assuming that your sample is more reliable to a larger population than it is. And finally, we have to be aware of the Hawthorne effect, the tendency of people to act differently when they know they're being studied.